I appreciate your patience. Well, first, Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays, and in the festive mood. And so I'm going to be answering your very serious question this way. And if you can see past all of the wonderful and feel the holiday spirit, then I hope that this answer benefits you. Okay, you have two children, so you have two different scenarios, but the results are fairly, well, they're really not. All right, let's tackle the oldest first, okay? And look, I know that these look so expensive, but they are not prescription, okay? So I got to take them off for a second and then put these on. All right, because I am getting older. All right, so you're a 14-year-old, 8th grade, on an IEP for dyslexia, dysgraphia, dyscalculia, executive function, ADHD. Okay, reads at a 2nd grade level, hasn't had proper intervention since being on an IEP. School has not developed, or they developed their own program, and it's being given by the special education teacher who has no reading background or isn't certified in Norton-Gillingham. This is happening everywhere. Got it? And this is such a common issue that I run into. And they're developed their own program. Is it peer-reviewed and scientifically based? That's what I want to know. And what is it? Can they explain it? Most of these schools cannot explain it. They cannot tell you what makes it special, what makes it peer-reviewed, what makes it scientifically based. And there are some huge, huge disagreements. Now, I don't necessarily have a problem with I agree that Orton-Gillingham for some children are very effective. And so, you know, if you know for a definitive that Orton-Gillingham is what's effective for your son's reading approach, then yes, so for the sake of this, I'll go ahead and assume that you have done the legwork to know that Orton-Gillingham is the program that is effective for your child, okay? But I don't want the people out there to misinterpret on reading programs. You've got to make sure that the product is one that's suited for your child. There is a lot of peer-reviewed, scientifically based reading approaches and programs out there. And they're scientifically proven or peer-reviewed on pretty much the same scale across the board. It's just how they're delivered in different ways. It's just, you know, kids should be individualized. Every human should. You know, and they have a different manner of learning, and some kids require a multi-sensory approach to learning. You know, others are rote learners, and others, you know, rely more on visual. So some of these reading programs, they're very, very good, but they're also sort of tailored or boutique, which is great. We need that variety. But that's where I'm saying, I'm not tooting the horn of Orton-Gillingham for everybody to run out and get Orton-Gillingham or get on Orton-Gillingham. I'm just saying that you need to make sure that your child, what their specific learning approach is, and that you're getting the right product involved for them. So for you, this is the one we're discussing. And, you know, so their own program, if he hasn't shown any progress, then, you know, I've had too much experience with their own program. So I understand what you're saying. But I like that you have the verbiage down, that they are given it with fidelity and by someone who's certified and credentialed in Orton-Gillingham. But they keep denying him, and the gap is widening. All right, now, why am I so jazzed about the term fidelity and someone who's certified or credentialed? Well, because if it's not being done per the instructions, then it's like cooking a cake and going, well, it needs 1 cup of white stuff. You have all the directions. It's correct. All right. But is it 1 cup of flour? Is it 1 cup of sugar? Is it 1 cup of salt? What is it? But that's the problem. If you don't have all of the details around and you just have this base level of ingredients and instructions, but you don't have it fine-tuned and broken down, and you don't have somebody trained in that so that they understand all of the mechanism, nooks and crannies about how to implement it per the instructions, because Orton-Gillingham is peer-reviewed and scientifically based, but only if it is being done in the manner as prescribed or indicated. And that's a major problem I run into with schools. I'll look inside their IEP and it will say that, oh, well, we're using an Orton-Gillingham approach. Okay, I don't know what the hell an approach is, you know. Either you're using Orton-Gillingham or you're not. You know, it's like people that use ABA strategies as opposed to therapies. What the hell does that mean? So you got to ask the question, you got to train yourself. Just because it says Orton-Gillingham doesn't mean squat to me. I want to know what they're doing. Are they doing it per the way that Orton-Gillingham has prescribed, using the people that have been trained and certified to do it? And are they do it in a way that is consistent, error-free, fidelity, or competency? Either one interchangeably. But to sit there and say, well, I went to a seminar. Well, what does that mean? See, you got to understand, when I go to these meetings, everybody hates because I ask a lot of questions. What does that mean? What does that mean? Because school people, IEP teams, administrators love to throw out these big words. They love to throw out labels. They love to throw out what they're doing. But nobody bothers to sit there and say, what does that mean exactly? Break it down for me. Break it down for us in the cheap seats back here, because I'm not understanding it. All right. And I need a little bit more help as to what that means. And so that's number one. You need to smoke them out on the specifics of their program. And then, you know, with regards to, let's say those cases I had where the child was receiving Orton-Gillingham inside the IEP. Well, they were only getting 30 minutes a day by somebody who went to a seminar once, or heard about it, or read about it at home over a weekend. Well, Orton-Gillingham, if I remember correctly, was like, got to use it 55 minutes a day, but for at least 4 times a week, by somebody who, you know, is certified in it, to have it be peer-reviewed and scientifically based. Now, I could be slightly off on some of it, but you get what I'm saying. 30 minutes is not 55. So, you know, if the child's not making progress, then I can sit there and pinpoint why. And, you know, you're at that point. So how do you get your child over? Can you file a complaint? Well, of course you can. But you can't afford a lawyer to go to due process. Well, I wish it was in a few years. You know, our daughter graduated from Michigan State, you know, with a special education degree. And she's about to take the LSAT. And she works with us, helping us out on occasion, and I appreciate her help. But you know, hopefully, she goes to law school and decides to do special education and be a benefit in this field. But she's there in Michigan. But I don't know anybody else, but that is the direction that you'd have to go. And I don't know where you are in Michigan. But you're going to have to call them on it. And can you file a complaint and try to get compensatory? Yes, to pay for a tutor. And also because you've given them multiple school years using their own special program, then it would be twofold. You would need to, you know, get the IEP corrected now, but then going back 2 years to get compensatory education. And I think having a very specific Orton-Gillingham trained professional, if that's his learning style, paid for by the school system, absolutely. But as far as that corrective action, to have that program adopted, and then you could probably get a tutor. You could have the certified person that's working with your child also training somebody to that level of certification or competency to be able to take over and have that tutor fade out to where the school system, you know, you need to just teach them to fish. And then the school can do it once they get all that stuff out of the way and going, okay? But that is where you would need to go. Your other son is 8, second grade, on an IEP. They just decided that he was cured and fine and he no longer qualifies, but they didn't do a thorough enough evaluation. And you are correct for asking for an independent, but see, an independent would relegate you down to only the areas where they conducted testing. If they did not do testing in other areas, then you would need to go back to them and say, look, you guys did not test in this area, this area, this area, this area. You can't just jump to, unless the school agrees to it. But I would go back to the drawing board and I'd say, look, you missed doing in-house evaluations and considerations in these other areas. And I want to have evaluations done in these areas and give them consent to do them in-house. Now, the areas where they did do evaluations and you don't agree with the results, if they can do the in-house ones that I was just talking about first, then you can sit there and negotiate with your director that you'll hold back on your request for independence until these in-house are done, so that there's another look or another review or another consideration done. And now that we're through the first semester, you should have a litany of data collection on whether your child is regressing, failing, falling through the cracks, or whatever, that would further bolster your second review. And in a lot of these areas, it's going to require some adaptive rating skills filled out by the teachers. And so you're also at a point to where they would be able to look at your son, I guess, with more clearer eyes. Try to find teachers that you feel have worked with him the most and see him where he's having difficulties. Okay, and you can negotiate with the director on that, on who you would want to fill out the teacher rating scales, but also ask to fill them out for yourself as well, because those can be used as far as an eligibility consideration. And of course, when you request an independent evaluation, the school they either have to approve it or they file a due process complaint to defend their own internal evaluations. And obviously if he's threatening you, that sort of tells me, that maybe you're onto something, that they rushed it through to find him ineligible. It sort of depends on, we have frequent issues with reading and math disabilities, of having this be the case because of that ambiguous collision course, because of Every Student Succeeds Act. Under Obama, when they got rid of No Child Left Behind, they created Every Student Succeeds Act. There's such a collision between special education and response intervention when it comes to specific learning disabilities, that a lot of the schools are trying to move kids away from IEPs and really bolster their response intervention, which is a non-IEP or non-special education function of general education. And there's some people out there in the science world, when it comes to reading science, and how to help children in science in the education realm. A lot of these people, and some of these people advised President Obama and had a heavy hand to play in some of these changes. And what they all say is that for some specific learning disabilities, having kids on IEPs actually is a detriment. And that's why some of these schools are trying to move kids onto response intervention, or they are not finding them eligible over on the IEP side. But see, there's other people out there that believe the opposite, that specialized instruction does help and special education does help. But at the same time, I completely agree with you, and I'm going to go back to your oldest. If you don't have the right reading program that's scientifically based and peer reviewed, that is the one that caters to your child's learning style, with a staff trained and competent in the delivery, then you're going to find your 8-year-old in the same situation that your 14-year-old's in. And we're having a problem nationwide, not just in Michigan, not just in Alabama, not just in New Mexico. It is everywhere. We are having a problem right now. And the source of these problems tend to go back to our colleges, where we are not teaching reading correctly, and we are not teaching enough of the teachers, and we are not requiring all the teachers to be knowledgeable in teaching kids how to read, and the variations and the individualizing of this process. Okay, we're trying to undo some damage we've been doing over the past 20 years, maybe more. Government works slow, though, unfortunately. And that's why it's important for us to advocate. And yes, I agree that they're not being truthful. But that's where I would go, okay? Have them do their in-house, get consent. And you probably have already moved past this because your question was asked a few months ago. With regards to your current request for an IEE. So, let me know what happened there. But he is correct that you can't ask for stay put in a situation like that unless you file a due process complaint. That's the only mechanism where stay put is recognized, is when you file a formal complaint. Okay?